We need some weeds. What's up, everybody? Lil Bobby Customs was on top of it today. He's like first one in. He's like, hey.
Happy 420.
Happy 420. We are in the Midwest celebrating the 420s. So we're in Missouri right now. Woo woo. We're at the Cola Lounge. For those of you in Missouri, definitely check out the Cola Lounge. They've moved locations. They got a new location now, and it is fantabulous. And there's less steps, and we like it. We love the other one, but we love this one too, and we'll probably love this one more. What's up, Kelly? Giving everybody a chance to get in here right now. I have to open my drive because I need all of the notes that I can get today. But for those of you joining us, as you know, we're about to get this session started. So thanks for showing up for us today.
We're rolling up now.
We're rolling it up right now. We are doing the thing. For those of, what's up next? I got some. For those of you joining us, welcome to the show. This is an adult content show. I'm sorry, I started in the middle. Thank you for sharing. Please share, especially if you're in Missouri. We want as many Missourians on this one as possible. It's about that time. You are about to get highly educated with the Cannabis Closet podcast with Canna Queen, that's me, and MJ, that's her. This is an adult content show with no limitations on subject, language, or actions. We're going to say what we want, do what we want. That's what we do. Opinions, views, and expressions may or may not be that of the host. That's us. Our guests, that's the people that's going to be here, subsidiaries to our show as well. It's time to get the session started. Thanks for rolling up and showing up. And here we are. We're going to get the show started. We do have a couple people in the audience today, but a few more people might show up. So we'll keep that line down right now. But we do have a camera, so if we have some studio audience, we'll show them off and get some questions from y'all. Those of you in the comments are welcome to ask questions today. We want to know what your questions are, especially those of you in Missouri who have questions about this ballot initiative and what it means for you as a Missourian. We want your questions. We want to be able to answer them because we want you to walk away with an understanding of what you're going to be voting for on November 8th. Today, on the show, we've invited a few guests. The guests that we have on currently, and we're waiting for, hopefully a few will be in. We have Wiley Price actually in the studio today. We have Christina Thompson and Nate Bullman are here as well. Thank you for tagging all of those individuals. What's up? Thank you, Missouri, for showing up for us. We appreciate you. And we're going to get started here in okay, here's the message. Is there a code? No, there. You guys didn't have to put a code or anything in, just shake your head or nod your head. Okay, good. There's not a code. So Melanie is on her way. We just got to get her in here with the right access. So
we see you. We see our numbers. If you're in the comments,
yes.
Say hello.
Say hello.
So if we don't know you're here.
First things first, let me bring Wiley Price in because he's just standing over here waiting for me to let him sit down.
Get out of his chair.
So I'm gonna get out of his chair and let him sit here, and then we'll bring our other guests that are in the waiting room on as well. Okay, so welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us in studio. It's a rarity that we get in studio guests, so we're super excited about it. So this is Wiley Price. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And
Sure. I am a two-term state representative. Some of my top priorities in the legislature when I came in were voting issues and legalization of marijuana, which neither was very popular when I got there. We were trying to do some very suppressive voter laws, and there wasn't much conversation around legalization of marijuana. I had help with that. It was simultaneously the med game was coming into play. So at that point, myself and a couple other Republicans, as well as some friends on the Democratic side, of course, specifically Ashley Van Love, started pumping on criminal justice reform early in the game. And then that turned into a full-on rec bill in 2704. So the rec bill was a little bit more expansive a little bit more comprehensive, and was a lot more intentional in how it helped people that really needed to be helped as far as like resetting in regards to this industry.
Yeah. And that was a bill that didn't pass.
Yeah, it was now the House Bill 2 right now. But
Okay.
it was, very, very commonly referred to as 2704 for the 2022 session.
All right. And then, so I'm sorry, we are of course having technical difficulties with my mouse. I'm going to bring both of our guests in here. Hello, Christina Thompson. A lot of your guests and Nate Bullman are here. Keep your questions coming. We're definitely gonna go back and look at them and ask those questions.
Can you still hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you great. So, and yes, we will speak up on this side. Thank you very much for that little piece of feedback. So let's start, because you're at the top of the screen. Christina, tell us a little bit about your background, and Show Me Can of Freedom is the page that you run. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so basically I started off, working in advocacy just kind of behind the scenes, with people that I personally knew. I had a very close friend of mine. He died without access to medical marijuana. He died from cancer without access. We have no idea if medical marijuana would have helped him because of the obstacles that were put in place by the current medical program. And I don't know how many people know this, but Amendment 3 is drafted by the same people who did our medical program. After witnessing him die the way that he did, it really prompted me to get involved. I realized that, patients across the state are suffering, without access, and it's not right, and the system has a lot of flaws that needed to be addressed. And, I felt that a lot of the flaws were intentional. And as a result of that, I really dug into the initiative. We ended up forming our group, a handful of us formed this group, to raise awareness about the initiative. And how it's not going to help patients in the state. So based on that, or interestingly enough, whenever I started it, it was for patients in the state. I was advocating for, other people, including myself, because I was a patient at the time, for, a completely different reason, but then, just a couple months ago in August, at the beginning of August, I went to the ER and I discovered that I have ovarian cancer. So all of this advocacy that I started out doing, for sick and dying patients, ultimately, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was advocating for myself, and I'm experiencing firsthand a different side of patient access that I didn't know before, because I'm now seeing it, from this side of the table. And that's basically how I got started and where I am now. I have a passion for wanting people to have access. It's about access. It's about affordability. No patient should have to choose. I watched my friend choose. He had to choose his life, over the choice that he had to make. Nobody should have to make.
Right.
We'll just put it that way.
Thank you
hopefully that answers your question. I don't know. Maybe you have a little more than your question.
And thank you for your strength and your advocacy too. And then we have Nate Bullman as well. Nate, tell us a little bit about your background, and tell us who you are. We haven't had you on the show before, so this welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. My name is Nate Bullman. I consider myself a medical marijuana advocate and a former YouTuber / podcaster here in Missouri, where I covered the ins and outs of the industry, political, covered Jeff City's movement in the medical marijuana field, and overall patient education.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on the show today. So I just want everybody to know that everybody on the show today is an advocate for legalization. So when we have a conversation about vote yes and vote no. It has to do with what are we voting for specifically, and that's the conversation we intend to have today. So I'm working on getting Melanie here. She's having an issue with the link, so I sent it over to her on Facebook, and hopefully she will be here momentarily. So we have Wiley and Christina here on the vote no side of this debate, and then Nate and Melanie will be here for the vote yes side of this debate to tell you why you should vote no or vote yes for this particular amendment, which is Amendment 3. To be clear, an amendment is different from a legislative legalization. So an amendment is going to change your constitution. It's going to amend your constitution. It's relatively set in stone. It takes a lot to get those things changed, to get laws changed. So once they're in place, that's what we're going to be living by. With legislation that's passed by a legislator, it's voted on in your state by your state representatives, and then it's passed through that legislation. The thing about legislative laws is that they can be changed over time, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Just depends on what changes we're talking about making. So just kind of like a brief synopsis, a real quick brief on the difference between one versus the other. Missouri has had the question of both in front of them this year. There have been a couple of legislators that have worked on trying to get laws passed, and then we have also Amendment 3 on the ballot this year for November 8th. So thank you for tagging everybody. We're gonna go ahead and get started, and hopefully Melanie will be here in a minute. I'm trying to take our time a little bit so that it gives her a chance to get in here. We want to have a fair discussion and have you hear both sides, which is why we wanted to set this up. We're super excited to be in Missouri for this discussion, and we appreciate you guys, those of you who are attending, to help us have the conversation, and those of you in the comments as well, joining us for that. So we're gonna just jump right in here, I suppose. So I just want to start with we've already answered the question, are you for or against cannabis prohibition? I feel like everybody's on board for this. Everybody wants to end cannabis prohibition. Am I correct about that?
Absolutely.
By all of our panelists, yeah. So we'll start with, why would we vote no to end prohibition? Why would we do that? I can give the floor to either you, Christina, or who wants to start this conversation.
I would personally love to hear what Nate has to say. As you said, this is the first time he's been on. We've asked, Legal Mo 2022 supporters to get on, these public shows and, have a conversation about it. And I personally would like to hear that stance, for the first time on a show like that. If you don't mind, Nate, that's completely up to you.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Say that first part of what you said again. So kind of.
I'd like to have Nate lead off.
Oh, you would like to have Nate lead off. Okay, well then absolutely, let's do that.
If he's okay with that is.
How do you feel about
Absolutely.
taking the lead on this?
Yeah, that's fine. So the question is, why would I vote no?
Well, the question on the table was, why would we vote no to end prohibition?
I don't know. That's what I'm here to figure out.
So I
honestly.
guess my question to you is, then why should we vote yes for this particular bill that does end prohibition?
Okay, so that's a long list. So with any bill, you got the good and the bad. So a lot of the things that I like in Amendment 3 is it goes farther than most states have gone in the expungement process. Most states don't even allow sales to be involved in the expungement process. Amendment 3 does. It gives access to anyone 21 or older to recreational cannabis. You get to grow your own. It expands on the medical program. Your card is now good for 3 years instead of 1. It expands the number of caregivers that you're allowed to have. It actually expands your possession limit. And I actually hear John Payne did an interview in NPR last night, and he actually got it wrong. So he said that the possession limit for medical holders is going to go from 4 to 6 ounces. But the truth is, the way that Amendment 2 is running, the possession limit is actually going to go from 8 to 12 ounces. It is currently 8 right now, and it will go to 12 ounces under Amendment 3. These are all great things. I think what you'll find is most of us agree when it comes to licensing, right? You're not going to get a whole lot of argument out of me when it comes to licensing. But my argument is the argument for licensing has passed. Multiple resistances have failed going up against New Approach Missouri that is now rebranded as Legal Missouri 2022. And there seems no realistic path to an open licensing system, which I would support. I think, like I said, we're going to agree on that point. My argument on this show today is going to be that the time for that is past, and it's hard to overlook everything else that's good about this bill when it comes just to licensing.
Okay. And then so all of the points that you made are made in the bill. It would create legalization. There are some questions that we have about the licensing that we're going to get into. And about the expungement as well that we're going to also get into. It's going to increase limits on the medical side as well. So it does make some changes to the medical laws as well. And overall, it's going to be legal in the state of Missouri. Like overall, that's the end result, is that people are going to have access to it.
Absolutely.
Okay, and so why then would we vote no on this bill?
I don't understand. I mean, I'm not going to say it like that, because I do understand why some people will vote no. There's especially amongst the old heads, there's this belief that cannabis should be regulated like a tomato, and I find that hard to argue against. But I understand why those people who have spent their lifetime working for that goal, that specific goal, would vote against this. But anyone else, it's kind of a hard sell for me to understand why they would vote no.
Right. So what do you want to, which one of you wants to start that rebuttal on that? Why would we vote no? Christina?
Oh, me. Okay, now I'm up. You can see, gets to do to me, but I just did the name.
Why would we vote no? And Mel, if you're in the comment section, if you could check your inbox on your Facebook, I did send you that link again.
Hang on one second.
That's for Melanie.
Okay. Sorry. I was like, wait, what? I have to check something?
No. You're good.
All right. So why do we vote no? I mean, honestly, all of the points, and I just answered this question in another post in another group, just like yesterday or the day before. There are some good things in the amendment. The problem is that those good things do not outweigh the bad. Yes, we want legalization. We want an end to prohibition, but the cost is too great in this. We're not talking about immediate effects. We're talking about long-term effect. What is prohibition going to look like? What is this going to look like in 50 years? What is this going to look like for our children and our grandchildren? That is what the concern is for the people who are in the vote no side of things. We're looking at all of the consequences that will be set into motion as a result of this. You're handing a $2 billion market, an estimated $2 billion market, based on the last statistic that I saw anyway, estimated $2 billion, and you're handing it to a handful of people. That's never good. The provisions that they have put in there for voters are essentially just a carrot, and it's a very small carrot. They're touting this as saying, like, yeah, you can possess 3 ounces of weed, but the trade-off is you are going to put this in your Constitution, and you are going to give us exclusive control over every single bud that is sold in this state. And if you do not give us that control, if you attempt to circumvent that, there are still criminal penalties. That is why there is still the possession limit. The stop and cite mandate in public, and a lot of people have said that the stop and cite mandate, it's $100. Big deal. That's great if you can afford to pay $100. How many people can pay to afford can pay to afford $100? They or can afford to pay $100. Imagine, for me right now in my situation,
Right.
I was in a hospital, being diagnosed with cancer, and my original prescription, my original medical certification was for anxiety. I have horrible anxiety, and I was stuck in a hospital needing to medicate, and I couldn't. If I had stepped outside and smoked, where cigarettes are allowed to be smoked, I would have been getting that $100 stop and cite mandate, that $100 citation. That puts me in a situation where I have to choose between something that I need and $100, and that is unacceptable to put into our Constitution. The biggest concern about this is that it is constitutional. As you said, there's a difference between the Constitution and a legislative option. The Constitution is essentially you're taking prohibition era laws that should be burned, and we could burn them right now because they're legislation. We could burn them, and instead we are engraving them in concrete by putting them in the Constitution, where burning them is going to require a lot more than fire, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Wiley?
I guess my concern in regards to this portion of the bill is just the application of it. It all sounds really good, but being a legislator and actually understanding how these departments work, there are some very big red flags in the actual application of how this works. Like she was saying with the stop and cite, okay, well, after 3 tickets, you have to go to court, and that's a potential misdemeanor, right? So once you get that charge, are we to use this automatic expungement system?
No.
To then go get that charge expunged?
Yeah. So
it doesn't apply to any offenses that occur after the passage of the bill.
yeah, that's a whole circle.
And so
Does that
my
cover
mind
it?
has to do too many mental gymnastics to understand, like, it's not written clean, right? And so with legislation, we have to be very precise. And my biggest issue with this is that it's very vague where it should be very specific, and it's very specific where it should be very vague. And the problem with that is that it's left up open for interpretation in places where we should absolutely know exactly which department in the state is going to be clarifying which one of your criminal charges make you eligible for an expungement. Right. We don't even have that in writing right now. We don't even know which. So it's going to be a pass the buck game from each department. So it's not in writing that we don't have to do it. We don't have to do it. And so then it's going to be that much longer on these expungements. And so when I actually think about the act, when I read the text, and I think about the actual application of some of these things, it's a false sale. It's not doing what it's being touted as automatic expungement, and it's not. Anybody that has been popped with more than 3 pounds of marijuana is not up for expungement, and that there's a list of people that aren't up for expungement, which I don't understand how we're okay with making millionaires billionaires, but we also okay with watching our friends and families continue to get locked up for something that, like, people that look like me have definitely been disenfranchised for. But that's the part that brings me heartburn, is that how are we helping these people make money while our friends and family continue to be persecuted? And we're giving the police financial incentive to interact with the same communities that we're trying right now on another social front to understand why we can't have this interaction. So it's like we're risking more Mike Browns, we're risking more, George Floyd's, we're risking more interaction with police for the same thing. Nonetheless, the people up top will continue to get paid. So it's a lot just away from the actual text. When I think about the social application of it, it doesn't sit right with me.
I want to take that question. And so I've heard a lot of people say, yes, there's automatic expungement. And then people say, no, there's not automatic expungement. I'm going to go to Nate first. What is the deal with expungement? Is it automatic expungement or is it not automatic expungement?
It depends. So it is automatic.
It's not automatic, right there.
Yeah.
No.
I'm trying.
No, just listen. If you
Go ahead.
If you have already completed your sentence and it is a nonviolent cannabis conviction that doesn't involve sales to a minor or driving while intoxicated, then your record is automatically expunged. If you are currently an inmate serving time, then you can now petition for release. Where currently now there is no pathway for their release minus parole if they get it. So if you are an inmate, you petition for that expungement. Also, Representative Price mentioned a 3-pound limit on the expungement. That is also automatic for possession of 3 pounds or more, as long as you were not involved in sales to a minor, as long as you were not involved in a driving while intoxicated, and that you have completed your sentence.
Page 35 and 36 of the actual text, it goes deep into that, and it states.
Okay, bust it out.
Not a problem.
He's
Here it is
doing
right
that.
here. Y'all can go ahead and walk with us.
Give me that stick right there.
So we just have a couple notes on that. So that's what we were seeing as well, is that it's not automatic expungement across the board. And so the question also still remains on the table that if you get caught outside of the cannabis laws that are in place in Amendment 3 and get arrested and then serve your time and then you're automatically expunged, is that how that would work? Because that feels like a waste of taxpayer dollars to me.
It absolutely is.
I don't disagree with you there. I would just, if I had the magic wand, I would automatically release everybody serving time for nonviolent cannabis convictions, but I'm not aware of any recreational state that has done so. And as far as the legality now, a couple to touch on a couple of things that's been said since the last time I had a turn. There is no stop and cite mandate. That is just a political talking point at this point. Mm-hmm. It is not a mandate at all. What we do set for what it is it sets regulations on public consumption. But it's not automatic across the board. So if your city, if your town or your county, where you live, if you want to open up a consumption lounge or whatever where public consumption is allowed, well, then you just petition your local government to do so.
So subject to limitation of this section, a person who is possessing not more than twice the amount of marijuana allowed pursuant to this subsection, produce no more than twice the amount of marijuana allowed pursuant to this subsection, delivered without receiving, considered a remerceration to a person who is at least 21 years of age and not more than twice the amount of marijuana allowed by the subsection of possession, with the intent to deliver not more than twice the amount of marijuana allowed by the subsection. Now here's the part. For first violation, it is subject to civil infraction punishable by civil penalty not exceeding $250 and forfeiture of marijuana. For second violation, it is subject to civil infraction punishable by civil penalty not exceeding $500 and forfeiture of marijuana. For the third and subsequent violation, is subject to the misdemeanor and punishable by a fine not exceeding $1,000 and forfeiture of marijuana. And then it goes into another whole piece.
So what part of that are you taking issue with, though? Do you think that, if your argument is it should be just open public consumption? That's the only argument that I can think that you're saying.
I don't understand how you legalize and penalize at the same time.
Can you name me a state that hasn't? Minus Oregon,
Sure.
Which Oregon's a little different because you can do a speedball in front of a cop.
So
Oregon is definitely the exception, not the rule.
And New York.
Wait a second. I'm trying to understand.
In New York, you can smoke marijuana wherever you can smoke cigarettes, but you can hardly smoke cigarettes anywhere in fucking New York.
That's not true.
About hospitality. There's nothing in this legislation about hospitality at all. In fact, what they do is they put it in the hands of.
So does the exemption of that mean that it's banned?
If I decide to drive from here to Kansas City, I don't know which county has what, and then we're back to playing that game.
Just gonna let that sit for a second.
Basically what you're telling me is it's better than what we have. And I understand
it's beyond better than what we have. It's better than what most other states have. I think, and I could be wrong here, but I would almost be as bold to say any other state has.
I'm representing a group of people that have been obviously, you seem like a smart guy. You know what group of people I'm representing. I'm representing the most disenfranchised, right? So I'm representing a group of people that have been starving in regards to this industry for a very long time. Here we've had an opportunity to go ahead and let them come to the table and at least get the crumbs, right? And so we missed on that first round when we got the medical. With 300 some odd licenses went out, 3 black people got licenses. None of them of which were really For real. So here we got a second bite of the apple, right? And we're saying it's an opportunity for minority licenses, and we're gonna help people that have been most negatively affected by this get out. This bill does not do that, and you cannot see a group of people starving and then say, "Here, come to the table," and hand them crap sandwiches and say it's better than what you got now.
I would like to.
Go ahead.
I would simply like to ask. Sorry, go ahead. What?
I'm just saying to him, I'd rather just starve if that's what you're offering.
Well, what I would like to know is why other states' shitty legislation has any bearing on whether or not we should swallow our own shitty legislation. I don't care if Oregon has shitty laws. I don't care if Illinois has shitty laws. They have shitty laws that they need to figure out themselves. This is our shitty law. And if we're just going to compare it across the country, I mean, then, you know, like we could do all kinds of stuff there. You know, that sets the bar pretty fucking low, you know, just to be real, it really does. And I'm sorry, you know, but the points about expungement saying that, yes, you know, it's automatic for people who have been charged for, you know, 3 pounds or more. That is on page 37. It's section 8A. And it says that, you know, after they have served their entire sentence and their supervision, that is the only time that they're going to be eligible for this expungement. You know, and that, how does that help these people who are in prison who were told, and I have screenshots of, you know, the Legal Missouri 2022 campaign where they said, you know, that people are not going to have to petition and that it's such a great thing. And then you look at page 36 where it says otherwise, you know, and ultimately the heart of it, my problem with the expungement provisions is the lack of transparency and the lack of honesty by the campaign and the process of gathering signatures. Again, the screenshots that I'm referencing, you know, played a huge role in that. I felt, and that was a big part of my motivation, I felt that they were deceiving the public, you know, and if we want, sorry?
Also the misrepresentation of the NAACP. I was told that the NAACP was endorsing this. When I talked to the top brass at the NAACP, they were absolutely not endorsing this. They hadn't even gone to a vote about it yet. And here they've come out with a card that they're against all 5 amendments on the ballot this year. But I mean, you wouldn't have to do that. I feel as though personally, you wouldn't have to do that to the general public if what you are touting as, you know, the best thing since sliced bread really was when I got to this. My friend, have you actually read some of the text of this legislation?
I have, but I think you guys are conflating me with somebody that's here representing Legal Missouri 2022. I could give 2 fucks about Legal Missouri 2022.
You're just for it.
Let's make that clear right off the bat. Okay, good. On it, good. So again, you're incorrect about the expungement. The expungement process is automatic after you have served your time. Okay.
Right.
Point being, you do have to serve your time first.
You're not commuting sentences.
Yes, but the vast majority of people this is going to affect have already served their time. They have already served their time.
That's not true. That's not.
How is it, you don't think that past convictions outweigh current convictions?
No, I would like a first in, first out system, but there's nothing in there. Again, there's nothing in this legislation that actually has a program that promotes a first in, first out system.
No, as a matter of fact, the program isn't even funded.
That promotes any type
That's
of
also not true.
reform.
It says it in the initiative.
Where there are programs on the outside that are waiting for people to come out of this system. Like we're missing, bro. We're missing the ball big on this, and that's all I'm saying.
Is it? So, okay, let's move on from expungement. I want to move on to the next kind of really important question that we've been seeing, and that is the difference between micro licenses and then larger commercial licenses. What is the? We've read the difference between them, but as far as like, what is your take on the difference between these 2 licenses? And so the micro licenses, as we understand, are being touted as a social equity piece, and I would like to know how that fits into social equity. So between the micro licenses and the commercial licenses or the larger licenses, what is the difference between those? And then how does it play into social equity is the question on the table.
I think we're all going to agree on this one. I just from listening to his intro.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it goes anywhere near far enough. I don't trust anything this group has to say when it comes to licensing. I'm a show me before I believe it. Just on this specific matter, I do, they do have my attention, and I do believe them on other fronts. But evidence has shown that when it comes to licensing, it's really slippery tongues when it comes from this group. So I don't think it go. I think it does go, probably a step farther than maybe a couple of other states. But this is where I would probably agree with Christina's argument against that, is that it doesn't go near far enough. And why if licensing is your core issue, then why would you vote for this initiative? Why would you vote for this bill? I wouldn't. Now, licensing is not my only issue. It was part of my issue, but it is far from being my only issue, which is why I'm voting yes. But as far as the licensing, it seems like it's a kids table. Okay, well, here you can sit at the kids table. You can have your little clout that you've got a business and blah, blah, blah. And then if you play nice and if you do good, maybe we step you up to the big leagues, and maybe we don't. That's how I feel about the licensing program, even under the social equity part of this program.
So my question is then, if we know that let me back up. With the micro license, as I understand it as well, it can only have one owner, and they cannot do business with the larger licensees. They have to wait a certain amount of time, a pretty nice chunk of time actually, to even be able to apply for these licenses. Because from what I understand, if there's already ownership happening in the medical market, then those people get first dibs in the retail market. And then is there room for expansion? I believe you can only own one of these licenses.
Correct.
Licenses as a micro license, so you
You
can't expand your operation as businesses would want to do as they grow. So,
And there's only 144 licenses available across the state. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think the biggest portion of this that I think we're all kind of overlooking is that the state has given itself, well, they're giving the state 548 days to get all of these licenses out.
Wow.
that's not going to happen. Missouri, that's
Wow,
not
that's
going
an
to
odd
happen.
number.
Right,
I wonder.
It's not
When
gonna
we're
happen.
talking numbers.
And like, even if you got them out in that time, that's still a year and a half, like on a program that's already 2.5 years in process. And we're also kind of racing against the federal time clock as well. So anybody that's a mom and pop shop that's currently trying to get into the game and fight against these multi-state operators, if it goes federal in this time that you just now getting your little micro license deal, which also, I mean, the issue with the micro license for me is that they said that there was going to be like for minorities, and there are nothing in the prereqs that are race specific. It's just like, if you live in this neighborhood, if you make this
community,
if it's and you only have to meet one of the prereqs. If you're a disabled veteran, and so it is the level of just dishonesty and how it was presented. Because look, I was big fan of Amendment 3 when I first heard about it. It wasn't until I actually sat down and had to digest all 40 pages of this and realize that this isn't anything like it's being advertised.
I think that's what I've seen from, I think when we've talked to people who are vote no proponents, that is the majority of what we're seeing is that, yes, everybody wants to end prohibition. Everybody wants that. But also when we talk about an amendment, a state amendment to your Constitution, and then you say, well, I don't really like this. We actually agree on that. I don't like the way that small businesses are going to be treated. I don't like the way minority businesses are going to be neglected. I don't like this part of the bill. Well, that part of the bill is permanent, set in stone once you vote for this, Missouri. And
just to touch on the micro license aspect of things, one of the biggest issues with that is, the restriction on the fact that they cannot do business with other facilities. So that means, that they are not allowed to stock their shelves, until another micro cultivator has enough stock or enough, available product for them, and sets them even further behind on this timeline for opening, and it also sets them up for failure in this market. You know, they're essentially segregated within this market. It's a very limited sphere of existence for these people, you know, who are counting on this as a way to, you know, provide for their families. You know, but as far as the equity aspect of it, these micro business licenses, it is limited to one per person. But for full-size licenses, if you have the money for a full-size license, you can own
10% of the market.
10%. That's, you know, there's going to be 600 licenses. One person can own 60 of those, you know, legally under this. And that's unbelievable. And, you know, as Nate said, you know, if this is about licensing, or if the primary issue is licensing, it's not just about licensing. Licensing is inextricably intertwined with access and affordability. If we do not have a competitive market for for marijuana in Missouri, we are not going to have affordable product for patients. And I've used this example many, many times over the past few weeks, and that is the patent that we saw with EpiPens and with insulin. We saw Big Pharma, you know, use a patent to drive up prices and make themselves, you know, this singular source for life-saving pharmaceuticals, you know, that people needed. And instead of using a patent, what I take from this initiative is that Legal Mo is using our Constitution. Amendment 3 uses our Constitution to do that. By limiting who can have businesses, only these people get them for the first 18 months. Okay, you're forcing Missourians to only buy from people who invested in this amendment. You know, we're using our Constitution to funnel money to one particular group of people. Okay, and that group of people is going to determine how much my medicine costs. You know, it would cost me between $1,600 and $4,000 to get what I need to treat the cancer that I have here in Missouri. I can't get it because there's a limit on RSO. Okay, in Oklahoma, I could get the same amount for about $700. You know,
cross the state line with it legally.
You can't do that. So I'm screwed. You know, and again, the issue with Amendment 3, my issue with it is the permanent and long-term consequences. I cannot justify my children and my grandchildren being subjected that if my child gets cancer and faces this same diagnosis that I am facing right now, knowing that this is what they're going to face, that is unconscionable to me. I cannot do that. And then the federal legalization aspect, Amendment 3 does contain language that says that unless federal legalization explicitly states otherwise, and this is important because when you're reading legalese, explicitly means a lot. Okay, unless federal legalization explicitly states otherwise, only these licensed facilities are allowed to bring anything across state lines.
Okay, so that was the question on the table. Indica Dapstone, I think that's gonna lead into what you're asking. And then I see John Greeley, we have your question next on the table for the changes in medical. But first, let's address the interstate commerce situation. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Companies, once federal legalization happens, will be able to cross state lines with product. Individuals who are not companies will not. Is that correct? In Missouri state law, in the Missouri law, according to in this amendment.
Amendment 3, yes. I have the exact language if you would like it read.
Yes, I would like that language.
Okay, unless federal law, rules, or regulations explicitly require otherwise, no entity shall sell, transport, produce, distribute, deliver, or cultivate marijuana or marijuana-infused products without an applicable license or certificate as required under this section. In addition, any raw biomass of marijuana or marijuana flower imported from out of state shall be received only by a licensed cultivation facility, while all batch oil, infused marijuana products, and any marijuana product in any other form shall be received only by a licensed manufacturing facility. This quote, this language appears in the initiative 2 times. One on page 17, and the second is on page 38, I believe.
Okay, so my question is, I guess I want to give. First of all, I want to say, Nate, you're holding your own. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry that Melanie is not here to
It's okay.
be a part of this debate, but we really appreciate you being here and arguing for the side of yes. So my question on this one is, does it actually end prohibition if you can get arrested for doing the same thing that big businesses are allowed to do? Is this law going, does that mean it's actually ending prohibition? Because
Well, if that was actually the case, then no, that wouldn't be an end to prohibition. And let's be real, Amendment 3 is not an end to prohibition either. Like, it is a giant step closer, but it is not an end to prohibition until cannabis is either unregulated or regulated exactly like alcohol is. Right? We're getting close, but that's not where we're at. As far as the interstate commerce, though. So that regards to businesses, those are business entities. That doesn't mean that once it's federally legal, you can't go to Kansas or Oklahoma or Illinois and then travel across state lines. It means they can't do business across state lines. And honestly, even at that point, that's a very challengeable thing in court because of the federal dormant commerce clause.
right.
Hang on, one quick question, Nate. You said you used the definition of entity. Did I miss that in this? Do you have a reference for that?
I don't, but it's regarding business. It is not regarding personal.
That's not a statement that you can make without a definition of entity. I worked in a law office for 5 years. I wrote.
Okay, but that doesn't make you a lawyer.
No, it doesn't. It means that I wrote ordinances.
Okay, listen.
Let's bring it back for just a second. So here's my question, and what my questions are leading into is that then if this initiative is not ending prohibition, which is something that actually Legal Missouri has been claiming that it's going to do, if it's not actually going to end prohibition, and there are a multitude of things that could be way different, and we have actually seen other states implement successfully a lot of these regulations, and they work for that state, they would work here. Should we not, like I say we because I'm part of y'all, I know I can't vote in Missouri, but should we not wait for and write a better initiative? Should we not? Do you
How
think?
long do we have to wait though? The MCIA came up against, so there's a history of opposition in this state ever since people started realizing, well, the fuckery that was going on with the licenses in the med program.
Right.
In 2020, when New Approach Missouri, which was their name at the time, tried to push a very worse version of this bill onto the ballot, there was opposition in a group called MCIA. Last year, there was opposition with Fair Access Missouri, which was the initiative that I personally supported. And I believe that was the future of Missouri. There has been HB 2704 has also failed. So how long do we have to wait before we take any step of progress? Like, why are we not going to expunge the records of tens of thousands of cannabis convicts? Why are we not going to give people who currently don't have a path to freedom a path to freedom? Why are we going to continue to pull over, prosecute you? 50% of all drug crimes in the state of Missouri are cannabis related. Why, even today, even though cannabis arrests have dropped, especially since Kansas City has changed their local legislation, why are we going to continue to push all of this when we're making giant progress? Now, look, again, and this is what I keep telling people. This is literally a battle about licenses. That's all this is. It's two sides, those who have licenses and those who want licenses. And we are the collateral damage. And we are going to, there are people out here that are spouting against this amendment right now that supported openly the worst version of this amendment in 2020. Now it's trendy because people without licenses that want to get into this industry are fighting for it, and they will shit on all of us to do so, just like the other side. And we are fucking collateral damage.
So do
This
we-
a constitutional amendment. A constitutional amendment is not that hard to change. Amendment 3 changes Amendment 2. The Show Me Can of Freedom, or the Can of Freedom Act, the HB 2704 would have changed Amendment 2. This lays down a foundation. In the beginning of this, Christina was talking about her children and her grandchildren. Well, her children and her grandchildren are going to benefit from the foundation that we're laying here. It can be built upon, and there is no argument that it is the most. Hold on, and I will yield to you in one moment. This is the most progressive recreational adult use marijuana bill in the entire country, and that is hard to argue against, unless
I don't know
your
about
only
that.
concern is licenses.
I don't know about if it's the most progressive in the country, but
Show me another one.
yes. So what were you saying about?
I was saying, I mean, you and Christina's people might be okay, but it looks like the people that are most negatively affected, again, the people that I represent, Black and brown people, and also poor people, are going to be collateral damage, like you said, but even on a even crazier level, because we're still getting locked up, and the police can still come into our neighborhoods and say, hey, you three guys in the corner standing there smoking, y'all shouldn't be standing there smoking. And now we got an interaction with police that really shouldn't be happening. And there's no real telling where this is going to go, because we're in an open carry state and we got all of this social justice stuff. So I think there's a social justice part. I agree with almost everything that you said in your argument, but what I'm not hearing is like you really getting the full grasp on the social justice and the social equity portion of this conversation that is just not being had, is being completely sidestepped and was promoted as just that. You came to a very specific group of people and said, hey, we're going to look out for you on this second bite of the apple. And now we find out we're not being looked at all on the second bite of the apple. So we got to wait for a third and fourth bite. Again, I don't like when people come to us and know that we have nothing, expecting us to accept anything. That's a bit hard pill for me to swallow, bro. And that's all I'm saying, Nate.
I would also like to add, as far as, communities that are impacted by this, and, the fact that prohibition is, a foot in the door for a lot of inappropriate conduct by law enforcement and government officials. A lot of people are fortunate to live in communities where that is not a concern. Other people are not that fortunate. The registration on a government list requirement for people who home grow. That's another thing that people have been talking about a lot. As anybody who reads this initiative knows that you are put on a government list if you want to home grow. And Amendment 3's supporters say that is a protection. It's meant to let law enforcement check, if somebody calls you and calls in a tip, that the smell of weed is coming from your house. It's meant to force law enforcement to double check this database before they issue a warrant for your house. Okay. One, we wouldn't need to worry about that if it was actually legalizing cannabis. Are you going to have to worry about Karen calling in, some kind of tip about the smell of weed, or anybody else who doesn't want to mind their own business? All right. Two, what you are basically doing is you are providing a map of every single person in these neighborhoods who grows, and you are handing that to law enforcement. Some of those law enforcement agencies may be trustworthy enough to have that information. Some of them may. Some of them are not. And the people who are victimized by that are people who have already suffered so much. Like, how can we justify putting that into our Constitution? People say that this is a baby step. Medical was the baby step. Once it goes into the Constitution, we're done with baby steps. It is all but permanent. It is not easy to change the Constitution. And I would like to point out that the Cannabis Freedom Act was killed by Legal Missouri 2022. So why would they stop something that was actually real prohibition? Why would they invest millions in stopping something that would actually end prohibition if their initiative was really going to do the same thing? We know that it's not, because that is where the financial motivation is. I want my children to grow up in a state where they don't have to fight a $2 billion a year industry controlled by a handful of people to re-amend the Constitution to undo this clusterfuck. My children shouldn't have to do that.
Does Amendment 3, by allowing Amendment 3, does it then make it so that you pretty much give up your Fourth Amendment rights?
That is in the current program rules. So the screenshot from DHSS, The current program requires that if you are a home grower, you give DHS, you agree to open your door for DHSS on demand. So if they show up, you are supposed to immediately make available your grow space for them. Some people say, well, it's just your grow space. They're not allowed to search your house. That's fine. Okay, I understand that. The point is, unless I check that box, DHSS would need to get a warrant just like everyone else. The fact that I checked that box means that their requirement to get a warrant no longer applies, which means my Fourth Amendment protection, that slice of it, no longer exists. And I would like to know how many classes of citizen in Missouri are required to waive a constitutional protection to do something that's legal. I know that people on supervision, they don't have Fourth Amendment rights. Their PO can show up anytime. I know registered sex offenders, they have to open their door anytime. Apparently legal home growers have to open their door to the government too. I don't know. But these are the kind of things that are being set up in this initiative that we cannot tolerate. I get it. We want legalization. We want something great. And I'm really, really grateful, that Nate is on board with that, and that this conversation is happening. But the long-term repercussions of this are not worth it. That's.
Hey, do you live in St. Louis?
I don't.
I live in rural Missouri.
All right, in St. Louis, I can only liken this kind of where we at in this crux in this argument right now to Better Together. That was when we were going to merge St. Louis City and St. Louis County, right? And so there was a good portion of people that felt like there should be a merger of the city and county, just not the way that they're suggesting that the merger should happen. And I think that's like really where most of us are. Like we believe that there should be some kind of recreational, kind of prohibition style like statute in place. But the way that they're trying to implement this doesn't help enough of regular Missourians. It only helps a very specific class and economic group of people. And it's very blatant in how they're doing that. And it's so blatant and how they're doing it in the language versus how they were first selling this in the beginning. I can't trust any portion of this. I think it's all bad business. The more we peel back the onion on this, the worse it stinks.
Nate, can you, and I'm just bringing it back to you because like I said, I know that you're fighting the good fight, and I know we have one more person in the, which is not going to help your case. So I just want to say, ladies and gentlemen, Nate is here fighting or debating on the side of vote yes. We did invite other people to join him, and unfortunately, one person is having a problem with the link, and the other person did not respond. We absolutely are doing our best to make sure this is like a fair conversation, and so we apologize for the uneven amount of people on each side, but we did do our absolute best to try to make this happen. But going back to that question that I was going to have, I have a question for you, Nate. If I don't have a license in Missouri to grow and the police do come to my door, I guess this is a question for all of you, and I'll just pose it to Nate first, but will I get arrested? Will I be fined or arrested for my grow? Will my plants be confiscated if I haven't signed up with the state to grow plants under a recreational bill?
I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that question specifically, what the repercussions of if I am growing personally without a license, what that would be. Now, when it pertains to who can come in,
because of what I would agree is a Fourth Amendment violation if you do have a license to grow, that they're allowed to come in and
that's not much different than our medical program now. At any time, DHSS can come to your door and you have to let them in.
Colorado, you don't have to have a license to grow your recreational plants.
You gotta be 21.
Saying that there's not places without limitations, or that this is the best program, is where we're coming from Colorado. So that's why I always look at the medical first and then, our state in comparison of things.
And to be fair, we're
So-
not doing it completely right either, but there
We're
are
not.
pieces in every, so yeah, this isn't the best bill we've ever seen. It's not the best bill in the books, and it's certainly not the best bill being proposed right now. And I'm just curious, I guess I just want to come back to what are the good parts of this bill that we should be paying attention to? What are the good parts of this?
So again, anyone 21 and up can purchase. You can grow your own weed for cheaper than what you grow it now. In the state of Missouri right now, as a medical patient, which I just recently became a medical patient again, thank God someone had the pity on me because I don't make a lot of money to set me up with a free card. That wouldn't be a problem under recreational. But currently it costs the patient around $250-ish. If they want to grow cannabis themselves under this, it would just be $100. That cuts that in half. Now how much you can grow is reduced with recreational versus medical. But if you are just someone who is medicating for yourself, just, it's more than enough to suffice one person at least. It literally changes the lives of tens of thousands of people in the state of Missouri who have been arrested for nonviolent cannabis charges. It gives a path to release for people that are currently serving time for nonviolent marijuana charges that they currently do not have. It is one of the best expungement programs that I have come across, and it is funded. There is nothing that's going to stop the implementation of it. Even if they did, do you remember Missourians voted to expand Medicaid, and Congress said, no, we're not going to fund that. It's not funded. We're not going to fund that. That went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says you're going to do your job and you're going to fund the program. So even if they tried not to fund the program or the expungement process, the Supreme Court has already shown that, oh, yes, you are.
Let me jump in here on that portion. Working in the legislature, there are ways to work around that in the way that this bill is written.
But why would they?
So one of the ways that I spoke to earlier was that there's no specific department that is designated to look at your record and decide which record is going to be expunged, right? And so that creates like a pass the buck situation in one of the 16 departments that we have in the state of Missouri, because nobody is mandated by this language to appropriate these funds, right? I'm sorry, excuse me, not to appropriate the funds, but to look at these records and expunge them. As far as the money, as far as the expungement, well, that is actually on
the courts will.
Tax money from the adult can be used or spent without legislative authority. But the problem with that is that includes the funding for the automatic expungement program. So we have to use that money, and then whatever's left over is for drug treatment and public defenders. But we don't really need that money for public defenders right now because we just gave them $94 million. We fully funded them. So when you don't have legislators at the table helping you write this kind of legislation, it creates these kind of problems. And it's like, to the average Joe, like, again, when I'm looking at the application of this and knowing how the state of Missouri operates, I'm like, this is going to not be good when you actually think about who has to do what and how it's written. So the problem the Supreme Court is going to have when this goes to the Supreme Court is they're not going to have an actual sentence to interpretate. Because
it's not going to go that far. Like, first of all, there's no motivation for them to not fund this. Second of all, the money, the courts will be doing. The courts are instructed, and they have a deadline that they have to go through the automatic expungements. It is the court system that will be reviewing them.
Yeah, the supplemental budget is done until July 1.
And then the appropriation for the funds, all of the money that comes in has to go to expungements first. Then it trickles down to all of the other programs, but it goes to expungement first. It's there's nothing to debate though.
No.
That's how it's written.
Is that what were you going to say, Christina?
I don't believe that's accurate that it goes to expungement first. It goes to DHSS first, which we know that they use. They're using this funding from the medical program to defend themselves against these lawsuits, you know. So the hand gets fed first, basically, no matter what. And only after that, and I may be misremembering, I believe that I'm correct. I was just looking at it the other day, you know, that expungement, provided the legislature does ultimately fund it, which it currently is not, you know, that is when money ultimately will go to that. So it's not primary, you know, it is definitely down the list of priorities.
That's incorrect though. That's just objectively false.
If Daniel Jones.
I actually didn't come up with that. The NAACP did.
Pause for a second. Daniel Jones, if you want to join this conversation, we would love to have you in here. We will send you the link to join the conversation outside of the comment section. I wanted to pause. I apologize for pausing, everybody. I wanted to introduce Ben to the conversation. Ben Hartley is here. And yeah, if you have questions, ask them in the comment section. Welcome, Ben. Again, we were not trying to make this a one-sided conversation, but we had all of these individuals invited last week and confirmed them all at the beginning of this week, or most of them, and this is where we're at. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Ben. I know that you've been traveling, and can you send to his messenger the link? We'll get Daniel in here too, because he's got some comments in the comment section. We'll have him join. So since Ben is here, I'm going to ask the next question, which is Amendment 3, yes, is going to legalize retail cannabis in the state of Missouri, but it's also going to make some changes to your medical program. Are those changes good for the medical community or not so great for the medical community? What does that look like? And we'll give Ben the lead on this one since he just joined us. Are you muted? Hold on, we can't hear you.
Can't hear you if you can hear us.
Let's see.
Muted on your end.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm unmuted?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Can you please repeat that? Because
So we've been discussing this new ballot initiative that's going to be on the ballot for November 8th, as you know, and a lot of subjects have come up. One of the questions that was presented early on was that there are going to be some changes to the medical program. So are those changes to the medical program under this amendment going to be good for the medical patients of Missouri, or is it going, or like, how is that going to affect medical patients in Missouri?
there are some positive changes, but it's really asinine when you compare it with the rest of the initiative. You know, I think honestly, my opinion is a lot of people are, you know, make the argument there's going to be more access under Amendment 3, and that may be true, but there's also a decrease in your possession limit from a recreational standpoint. So, you know, a medical license can provide a patient 16 ounces. So I can drive anywhere in the state of Missouri with a pound in my trunk under the current medical program. But if I do that as a recreational user, I'm going to prison. So I for one, you know, and this is just my opinion, I'm not a big fan of medical marijuana to begin with. The whole program itself, I don't think you should be paying licenses or fees. I don't think you should have to have a permission card to use cannabis. I think it should be as accessible as, you know, anything else, any other food crop that's available. So there are some points. Yes, there are some additional, you know, benefits. One of those things is when it comes to traffic stops, dealing with law enforcement. You know, so, you know, mere possession is not going to be grounds for an unlawful search if a person has their license. So that is specified in the amendment. And I actually tend to agree that's good language. It doesn't go far enough. I wish they would have included a lot of things, but particularly I wish they would have included something to do with civil asset forfeiture. And if I can touch on a little bit of that, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to rabbit trail a little bit, but, you know, having to do with this stop and cite clause, which again, the campaign, we forced them to admit that that was the case, and they're adding a public use fine that will create a record, so it will be on your record. which is a little odd to me since you're expunging people's records, but then you're creating new criminal records.
Exactly.
Or at least a civil infraction. But that, as everybody knows, that a stop and cite is just a stepping stone to a search, which is a stepping stone to other things, which is going to happen. So I think that you're going to see a lot of issues with law enforcement and cannabis users because, again, you're creating a constitutional mandate that never existed before. We have statutory laws that obviously they enforce, but we don't have constitutional laws that are going to force our law enforcement to engage with the public. And again, and I'm getting off on another subject, but that would be my concern. So I think ultimately what I'm trying to say is that there are some added benefits for users. You have an increase in plant counts for caregivers, for example. The caregiver program's great, especially for those who can't afford or don't have access to cannabis. You can get cannabis from your neighbor or your friend or family member who grows. That's great. And an increase in plant count is also a good thing because, as Christina will tell you, who's had some recent experience with this, it takes a tremendous amount of flower to extract and create RSO.
It does.
And but that's a felony under
It's
law.
There's not enough plant count in there. We have Waxy Brown on too, so just so you guys know, it's joined us. So here's my question concerning that. Shouldn't the medical provisions, the changes in the medical bill, shouldn't that be a separate amendment? Shouldn't that be a separate thing that you're voting on instead of combining the retail and the medical? Because it sounds like the medical is something that can help with the patients, but then the retail is something that's not going to necessarily be helpful to Missouri.
You asking me?
I'm asking the panel, but yeah, you can start.
No, because the vast majority of Amendment 3 contains Amendment 2. So when it's 39-page document.
Right.
So the bulk of it is language from Amendment 2. So they're adding things, they're revising things. So that's what you do with a constitutional amendment.
It's expanding it.
It's expanding it. Yes, that is true. And but in my opinion, and I think we all realize this. Honestly, like I said earlier, look, I'd rather have my 16 ounces in our medical program than limited to 3 ounces recreational. I don't know about you guys, but
yeah, that's what I guess where my question is coming from is that if they're going to, I guess, couldn't there be like two different things to vote on? Should we do this for medical? Yes, we should do this for medical. Absolutely. Should we do this thing for retail?
I mean, they could have, but again, the way they set this up was so that the rec market could jump off, immediately. So,
right.
In a lot of ways, the rec is going to absorb medical marijuana, which is what happens.
A lot.
Well, and I want to state this out there. But whether or not you're pro or against all this, if it does pass, I encourage everybody to please keep that medical card, because when you use the medical card, 4% of that tax, the complete 4% of the tax goes towards veterans, which everybody knows I try and stand on that voice sometimes. And like, this is one portion of that where I love the fact that we're progressing, but I also think that the medical cards are really important from a hyper perspective as a veteran. That they keep using those medical cards.
But let me say this in regard to veterans. Now, I'm tired of people using our veterans and our minorities as like the selling, and our schools as the selling point of like somebody is going to get some tax relief. We never end up seeing the tax reliefs. Like, veterans still haven't really gotten their money from the original Amendment 2. We still tied up in all those legal issues, and our veterans still haven't gotten that money. So I hate that this is even being touted like it's something else for the veterans, and they still haven't gotten the first check that they were supposed to get in 2019.
I'm really confused about that. because I know that we paid some legal fees, but I know that over 28 million has been transferred to the Veterans Commission, which, as a disabled veteran myself, the Veterans Commission funnels the money that I need into the veterans' homes, the hospitals, all the programs that we use, things like that.
Yeah, do you know how much money we brought in during the initial campaign?
I'm assuming you do.
I'm asking if you do, bro. Like, it was a lot more than
I mean, if you have the answer, just please give it to me because I don't have it in front of me.
It was a lot more money than 20 million. The veterans owed a lot more than that, and they were supposed to get it a lot sooner than they got it. Is the bottom line.
Often too, like, not to go too far off course, but a lot of times the money that is put into veterans programs is funneled out by other programs that may or may not necessarily need them. So we have to keep that in mind as well.
Again, I would need to see something about that, but I do know this. I can look at this from a bird's eye perspective, or I can look at it from a high perspective perspective. My high perspective perspective is that eventually I'm going to be in one of those veterans homes, and I'd like to be able to use cannabis in it. I'd like to have a good place to be, all that. So like, there's that part where I'm actually very glad that we're taking, you guys using the word funneling, and I don't like that word because it involves crime, and I'm not insinuating anyone's committed a crime here.
But I would like to say, that for you have the opportunity to look forward to one of those funded veterans homes. What about the people in Missouri who do not have that option? The people that we're talking about affordability. One of the things that Nate has repeatedly mentioned is increasing patient access. And I fail to see how letting somebody have 12 ounces of weed instead of 8 ounces is helpful if you can't afford the 8 ounces. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm $1 million in debt or $50 million in debt. I ain't going to be able to pay any of that. And the cost of marijuana under a program that has no competition, a program that exclusively controls supply and basically is setting these prices. That is not accessibility. That's not affordability. That's not going to increase access for any of us.
Well,
About a half ounce.
Let me say real quick. When I say access, what I mean is I want cannabis in everybody's hands. Right now we have it in 200-something thousand people's hands. We have 6.5 million Missourians. We also have millions of other people that travel through our state. When I say access, that's what I'm talking about. I understand what you're talking about, but when I say access, I want the plant in everybody's hands for everybody's reasons.
But it doesn't matter if you have the option of having it in your hand if you can't afford to go and buy it in the first place.
I bought a half ounce the other day for $98 at the dispensary. I pay allegedly about $100 for that same half ounce on the market.
We're talking about more than just flour, though. We're also talking about RSO. And right now, RSO in Missouri, the cheapest that I found was $27 a gram, as opposed to a state like Oklahoma, where you can get it for $5 a gram, and in some programs even get offered it for a penny. And again, this is about competition. This is not about being selfish or financially driven, wanting to rake in all of this money. It's about wanting to live as a patient without struggling for access, and the only way that's going to happen is with competition. So expansion, yes, there are some things that it expands. It lets people, you can have 6 patients instead of 3, yes, but it doesn't increase the plant count. It's still only 24 flowering plants. You should be able to do 36 if you have 6 patients, and it's just, again, this program, it's set up to make it difficult for people to have their own medicine without having to rely on dispensaries. And we need competition if we are going to have affordable medicine, veterans and regular people.
So
I agree with you.
Hold on just a second. Did you say that the Veterans Fund gets 2%?
Yes, the way your rec is going to work, 2% goes to the Veterans Commission, 2% goes to the Public Defender's that the public defenders program who desperately needs that money also, and then 2% goes towards addiction.
That money. We just handed them $94 million. We fully funded the public defenders.
How do you know that? Do you have like
the legislator, bro? That's how I know it. I was in budget when it happened.
Okay, so here's what I know. I had a public defender. Okay, I had a public defender. And when that guy greeted me behind that glass window when I was in jail, that dude called me the wrong name and accused me of the wrong crime. And at that point, I knew I had an overloaded, overwhelmed attorney trying to help out people that needed help. I needed help back then. So I believe in funding that program. Now, as for the bread, how much money's going there? I'm not an accountant, bro, and I'm not handling the way that they're.
Okay,
I don't know what else you want me to say. That's money going to a program that we've already funded that could be going to some more money to veterans.
The public defender system is so underfunded, it's disgusting.
What do you mean?
Okay, so 2% is going to veterans.
Well, here's what can I chime in on this?
Where's the rest of this money going to go?
Well, first it's going to expungements.
For a second.
2% to veterans. 2% to veterans, 2% to addiction clinics and addiction funding, and then 2% to your public defenders programs.
So that's 6%.
It's a very low tax.
Okay. So somebody was trying to speak a moment ago. Who was trying to break in there?
I was. If my mic is on.
Stop chirping.
And can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it's Ben.
Sorry,
okay.
my phone overheated, so I had it literally hanging out the window here to cool it off.
It's okay. We're the queens of
technical difficulties.
Like that, technical difficulties.
Hey,
so.
man, I want whatever he's puffing on though. That's all I know. I know you got the good stuff. I just want to chime in on the whole public defender situation. I'm assuming you guys were talking about the taxes because that's where I came back in.
We're talking about where the tax money is going to be put into. So 2% is going to veterans, 2% to the public defender, and 2% to public programs. Did I get that right?
Yes. Addiction programs.
Addiction programs.
I mean, attention is more than most places. So
you're cutting out.
Kind of cutting out right now.
Nope.
Can't hear him.
I like this.
There's a lot of hair splitting going on. We're always curious, Vernon, curious about where your tax money is going to go because that's really important. A little off of Missouri topic, but we were just recently having a discussion about Arkansas that has also got an amendment on their ballot this year. And they have a 10% tax. 15% of that is going to a police stipend, which I think if citizens of Arkansas knew that, they would maybe not want to vote for that, not want their tax money going to the police. Because generally speaking, as a community, as a cannabis community, we don't see eye to eye with the police.
That was where the Cannabis Freedom Act went south with the Second House Committee when they introduced these amendments, because they actually included funding for police, which I agree. We should limit our funding of police to a degree. And one of the methods of doing that is, end civil asset forfeiture. And so on the issue of public defenders, I wanted to chime in. Do I have a better connection now?
Yes.
Okay, good. There would be no need for public defenders if we were actually legalizing cannabis, but unfortunately we're not. And so one of the things that came to light during our campaign for the Cannabis Freedom Act is law enforcement groups reached out to the Public Safety Committee and they said, hey, you guys are removing cannabis from the revised statutes list, Schedule 1. We're no longer going to be able to enforce DUIs. And a big light bulb, went off and said, absolutely, you're absolutely right. You're not gonna be able to enforce shit. Because as soon as you remove cannabis as a Schedule 1 drug, it's right. Gonna be as legal as a carrot. You know, and so
Right.
there's just like these core critical issues of legalization that we're not talking about. The campaign purposefully. Let me finish. Hold on. Let me finish.
Yep.
They purposefully excluded that. Not only that, but they downplay its importance. And so those are the issues I've had, because they could have easily included a clause to end civil asset forfeiture. That I don't understand. They could have easily included, remove cannabis from Missouri's revised statute list of controlled substances, but they didn't do that. And I think the reason they did, and I can only speculate, so this is pure speculation. The reason they didn't do that is because you do have attorneys who profit from prohibition. You do have attorneys who have practices that are built on defending cannabis offenders. That's my opinion.
Yep. I mean,
and and also you have a campaign that just raised another $1 million, and so it puts a lot of people out of work.
700,000.
Yeah, close to $1 million. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So can I get back to the core? The reason you even started this, Ben, was you were talking about public defenders, but you're kind of straying off course there. I want to go back to something you just said. You said that if we legalize cannabis the right way, we wouldn't have to participate in the public defender program. I go with the motto that weed is the exit drug from a lot of things, including there's no reason at all that cannabis can't fund a public defender program that helps other people besides just us.
Bro,
yeah. No, I agree with that. That's not the issue.
Why are we overfunding them now?
Well, that's just recently though.
Yeah,
Mr. Price. So that just happened.
August 28th,
before any of this was written, and they're still underfunded.
Everybody in the nation will go knock out them courts, so they don't have an overload like they once did. Moving forward.
Let me offer another speculative argument.
I think is the argument here.
Yeah, I'm saying just like fiscally, that's 2%. You just don't. They can go somewhere else. Here you go, right here.
Oh, that's nice. Fancy.
64 M's, bro.
So then.
So the question is, how are they managing that? How are they managing all those resources?
Who's asking?
Well, listen. I agree with you, Ben. I agree. There should always be accountability. With responsibility comes accountability. If somebody's screwing up, that's a problem.
Hey, I actually have something to interject on that. Just whenever you're done, go ahead.
My issue with Amendment 3 the entire time is that there are all these places where there are these screw ups, not only financially, but also in social justice, also in application. When you don't specify which departments are responsible for which portions of these responsibilities, it's a lot of screw ups. And then you got people that don't understand the process that are saying, "Oh, we can go back and fix it." It's like, yo, man, I don't think y'all understand the amount of money that it costs and the time that it takes to go back and fix it. It's not a go back and fix it situation. It's a we don't need this.
So what do you want to go back and fix? That money's going to fund public defenders? That seems like it would be low on the priority list of things to fix.
I mean, it is. I'm just saying. I mean, we just talking about taxes there. I mean, if we just having the conversation about taxes.
But in every argument I come across, everybody.
I think Christina was trying to talk, guys.
Yeah, I just had a real quick comment about the accountability aspect of it. This is another thing that I personally have an issue with. In regards to this initiative, is it is set up to make DHSS this sole exclusive authority that operates with very little, if any, oversight or accountability. It is written into this Constitution, subject to interpretation by someone eventually that
Supreme Court.
that DHSS that no elected official can interfere with or influence any of the administration of DHSS, of this program. That is a very far-reaching statement, okay? And I'm not a lawyer. I worked at a law office for several years. I helped draft city ordinances. And one thing that I learned in that process was that you have to be very, very, very specific about what you write. And otherwise, you're opening yourself up for loopholes. And to say that DHSS has this separate existence, outside, that they're operating outside of legislative interference or influence, what does that even mean? That could mean literally Like, we don't have to show you our budget.
What does absent good cause for denial mean? I mean, there's
So
tons,
my point being that, you know, if you support accountability, which, yeah, I have absolutely no doubt that Daniel does, you know, if you support that accountability, the problem with this initiative is that there is no accountability, you know, and again, this is the precedent that I said was so dangerous, and why I'm so concerned about the future, the long-term repercussions of this is when you put this into something, this is going to have the backing of our entire state. The full force of our state is going to be behind this to defend whatever it means to say that DHSS gets to do this without legislative interference. I mean, that's huge. That is a get out of jail free card that I think that only lawyers can truly understand. And the lawyers who have commented on that specific issue have said that this is scary. You know, hopefully, I was hoping that one of those people would volunteer, you know, to take part in this. Unfortunately, you know, I don't think that he is able to. But you know, this is a big deal, and we cannot vote on it without fully understanding it. People need to fully understand what consequences this is going to have. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
Yeah, you betcha. It should be like that with anything that we vote on. Any subject, anything at all that we vote on as Americans, we should always try and understand the best of our abilities.
Also, some of the conversation is, well, you know, it's like this one point is what's really important to me, and I would encourage you as voters to vote beyond one single point, because yeah, it's just so important. There's a lot of questions that we obviously have about this bill. I want to pause for a moment, and I want to give a shout out to the Cola Lounge. Cola Lounge is hosting us today, and if you guys can see scrolling across the bottom, that's their Cash App link. If you guys want to just throw like $1 or $5 or whatever to support Cola Lounge, they just moved to a new location, local St. Louis. Nice lounge to hang out, smoke with your friends. It's where buds meet. So yeah, help out, throw a couple bucks at the Cola Lounge. It's $ the Cola STL. If you guys want to do that. This show is always and also brought to you by Queen Kitty Seltzer. Queen Kitty Seltzer, pop this kitty, put it in your mouth. That is our CBD, low CBD, sugar-free seltzer. We've just done a label changeover, and we are working on infiltrating a city near you, so look out for us. And C2 LLC, of course, we're cannabis consulting and education. We are qualified and licensed in the state of Colorado to teach responsible vendor training. And if you need any help in your dispensaries or your grows or your extractions or kitchens, in Colorado or outside of the state, we'll be happy to help you out. We are a nationally based company, and we'll be happy to travel for you. 970-426-5985 to reach us, or customer service cqllc@gmail.com. So we are getting probably about 30 minutes, more or less, towards the end of the show, and I want to give everybody an opportunity to have last comments and everything. But first, I really want to just go back to this piece, because on the Cannabis Closet, this piece is probably one of the more important pieces for us. And we kind of touched on it a little bit when we were talking about micro licenses and such. But I would really like to know, under Amendment 3, what does Amendment 3 do for, how will it impact minority communities and communities of color, and more socially, economically, for communities as well?
I'd love to start.
We'll give it to
Go
Dave.
for it.
It's not enough. It never will be. Because of what happened to our country over the last 80-something years, it's not enough. In fact, no bill I've seen in the United States of America or initiative or any attempt whatsoever at these laws has been enough, but at all. So like, I just want to say that, like, that's really important for me to say. And second, like, I have to say, I can't stand on that platform and scream it, because truth is, I also agree with everyone in the room probably that no law that we passed in the United States of America has has benefited enough people that needed to be benefited.
I'd like to
specifically in regards to this industry.
Very much so. Very much so.
We've been targeted here in this industry and specifically. I think the A3 actually doesn't do anything to change, to move the needle in my communities, our communities of Black and brown folks, or even poor people. It doesn't even give them an opportunity to get into the game and actually try to change their situation or create generational wealth for their communities or the people around them. What it does do is allow police to have more interaction with the general public and people that are probably in those neighborhoods. Again, you run the risk of the Mike Browns and the thousands of other names where police should have been just minding their business, but they wanted to jump on somebody for selling a Lucy or selling burnt CDs or allegedly doing something. And that's what it does do. So that's how it potentially will move the needle. And I suspect that it will.
I'd like to tee up Christina for this because I know she's very well versed on this, if I may.
Oh, the micro businesses? Yeah, you already missed my breathless rant on that one.
Yeah, so the question
I'd like to say something.
How is Amendment 3 going to impact minority communities, communities of color, and poor communities, low income?
My opinion is it's going to hurt those communities, like Amendment 2 has already done. And you guys probably went over all the details. I'm assuming you went all the details of micro businesses before I jumped on.
Yeah, we talked a bit about it, about the difference between a micro business and a large, more corporate model.
Yeah, we all agree on the table.
I don't think that there's going to be any micro businesses, in my opinion. I don't think there's going to be any at all. I think there'll be zero micro businesses. When you give the industry 18 months to go to market, and then you expect there to be, a market after that. I mean, these guys are going to stack licenses. They're going to, you can't compete with the person who owns 10 dispensaries in your region or has a 100,000 square foot facility.
Especially if you can't do business with them.
Especially you can't do business. Yeah. I think it's just a carrot. I think it was a tricky little carrot they were dangling in front of minorities and underprivileged, saying, hey, we're going to give you a slice of the pie. But, I will say, because I have spoke with Dan personally on this issue, that it's one of the things that he says he fought to bring to the table, that Normal specifically brought that to the table. Because here's the reality, guys, and I'm sure you spoke on this, Christina, maybe you haven't, but I'm going to say it anyway for the viewers. The reason you don't have an equitable market today in the state of Missouri is because the medical marijuana industry killed our chances in the legislature with the Cannabis Freedom Act. They are the only people, literally the only people in the entire state of Missouri that campaigned against or testified against our bill. And I know that Wiley's familiar with this, but if Ron Hicks' bill was passed, you'd have a fair and equitable market. You'd have an open market as it should be. But what they did with Amendment 2, and we actually asked voters to turn out Amendment 2 as well. It may come as a shock to some, but we were campaigning against that too because we knew it was going to monopolize the industry. I mean, all you had to do was read the damn thing. And we knew they were going to set themselves up for turnkey rec operations, which is exactly what they've done.
Yeah.
And so, the people who financed the Legal No 2022 campaign don't want to see legalization. They don't want to see a fair and free market. If they did, they would have got behind Ron Hicks in our efforts. They don't want competitive market. They don't care about equity. They may pretend they do, but they really don't. Money talks. And when I see $7 million being poured into that campaign, that employs people like Tom Robbins and Steve Tilley, who have stifled and or sabotaged our efforts every step of the way. And Christina can tell you because she was there the day it was supposed to go to the House floor. Dean Ploucher all of a sudden, it doesn't have enough demand. Oh, really?
No, that was Fraker gave him a call. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, really? It doesn't have enough demand. Is that right? So the House can vote almost unanimously on eliminating license caps in 2020, but it doesn't have enough demand. The people can rally by the thousands And look at the movement we sparked. You know, it doesn't have, no, it's because people like Robbins and Silly got in their ears. And we saw this firsthand, so I could say this. You know, we saw this with our own eyes. They threatened lawmakers. They bribed others. They threatened to campaign against them or support their opponents in this upcoming election. This is the kind of business that, you know, Legal Mo 2022's lobbyists are up to. And so they can talk all day long, but we saw it firsthand. So we're not going to have equitable market so long as the industry profits. And so that brings me to my final point. I'll just jump off of this. I've called upon every single person in Missouri to boycott the industry until they're willing to put their money towards creating a fair and equitable market and actually ending prohibition. I don't want to give them a dime. Understand, it was your money that financed this campaign. The millions of dollars they raised came from the dispensaries.
Yes.
Okay, it's your money that is creating the system. And so I'm, you know, maybe an extreme form of protest, but I'm calling upon people to stop spending your money until, again, they're willing to do the right thing. I'm not against business, and I'm not against people profiting from cannabis. I am against this corruption through and through. So with that, I'll shut up and let anybody else get on.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate
So the question is still on the table. How does this help minority communities or hurt minority communities and low-income communities? One of the questions that I kind of want to tie into that is it? I mean, I don't feel like anybody believes that it's helpful that the police can still arrest you on some of these cannabis charges. Can we all agree that that's not going to be helpful?
I mean, I just don't want the interaction. I want to minimize the police interaction in very specific neighborhoods where there's already a high level of distrust with police. And it's just not, why would you give them fiscal encouragement to then go and deal with the general public when they can get paid off a tax up a ticket?
What is the realistic alternative? Is it a completely unregulated medical marijuana market? Is it
That's-
just there's no rules? It's just chaos?
To not put
It's
those
just
kind of
illegal,
right?
stipulations in it,
Into
in
the
bill.
my opinion.
Yeah.
Those stipulations can be changed. Those, you know, like that, they don't have to be agreed upon. Why? Why is it okay?
Also, just a little piece on your expungement on the expungement with this bill. Your governor stated with his whole chest that they don't agree with Biden's stance on this, the pardons, you know, so they won't participate in that. So again, that makes me question this automatic expungement. It's something that I feel like when I heard about this, and again, I'm not in Missouri. You guys got to make your own decision based on what you've heard here today. But that's one of the things that I think I had like the biggest problem with is it doesn't automatically expunge really anything unless you're already out of jail and living your life. And also it still has that piece where you're going to have interaction on some level with the police concerning cannabis. And we don't want that interaction with the police concerning cannabis because cannabis is literally not harming us.
But we're already having interactions with the police.
Yeah, that's where we're at now.
Right,
Yeah.
so, but they're saying that there's certain instances where they're going to interact, and I'm going to be real.
Can I clarify?
Hold on, just a second, because I really do want to make this point because not a single white person has been. But let me just be real clear with you guys. We aren't going to be as high of risk of having those interactions as our neighbors of color are going to be and have always been. And I understand that some of you have a history with interactions, and I totally understand that, and I hear where you're coming from, but I'm just gonna be real clear with y'all. It's not even on percentage alone. It's not even close to what people of color have to deal with on a daily basis just walking out of their house. Now imagine that they're breaking some kind of cannabis law that's written into Amendment 3 whenever, like literally when they say they're legalizing cannabis, that's what people are going to think, and they're not going to think anything beyond that, and then they're going to get arrested for cannabis. And now you got a whole another situation where we have communities who have distrust around things that they could be involved in and they should be involved in.
You know,
Okay.
I would like to say, you know, that the point that has been repeatedly made by Amendment 3, you know, by Legal Mode 2022 is what is the better option? You know, we're already in such a shitty situation right now. You know, well, sorry guys, this is the best option we have. Again, the only reason this is the best option is because of what happened with the Cannabis Freedom Act. Okay,
Facts.
but beyond that, why should we choose something that is horrible, that is going into our Constitution, just because there's supposedly not a better option? I can think of a better option, and that is to wait. You know, what very few people realize is that we did something that has never before happened in Missouri's history. Okay, the Cannabis Freedom Act was filed in the middle of February. All right, within
With
3
no
weeks,
money.
within 3 weeks, we had a committee hearing. Everyone told us that was not going to happen because nowhere in the history of Missouri has an adult use bill ever made it to committee and out of committee.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so we
yes.
are closer. We are closer than anyone wants you to believe. Imagine if we did that in 3 weeks. What could we do in a year? What could we do in 2 years? What could we do if just enough people got together for 6 months? You know, but more importantly, there is change coming. Okay, I am fully invested in that. You know, more importantly, because based on the fact that I was there at the Capitol, I was talking to our representatives, I was talking to our senators, you know, and they recognize as well that this is coming. You know, but the most important part of this is that we not give up this close to the finish line. And let me, this is the example that I give. Imagine for 100 years, you know, the cannabis community is fighting for legalization for 100 years, for an entire century. These people are fighting for legalization. We get to the finish line. The finish line is in sight. It's been 100 years and we're finally making progress. And Legal Mo Amendment 3 is seeing if we pass something like the Cannabis Freedom Act, prohibition will actually be over. So to prevent us from doing that, they're offering us 3 ounces and a couple of little perks here and there if we agree to make prohibition a permanent part of our Constitution. You know, imagine giving up at the finish line. Like the cannabis community has been fighting this for so long. Why would you give up at the finish line? Why would you accept something this horrible when we have literally, we made history happen? We were part of it. Why would you give in? That's my question.
Can I answer you?
Actually, hold that. I'm going to go to Nate. I want final thoughts from Nate, and you can answer that question, or you can go to final thoughts. And Daniel, I'll let you go next.
All right.
I can give you final thoughts and that. Okay.
Okay, so the original question that was posed to us is, what do we think the passage of Amendment 3 is going to do for minorities? Okay, and the answer is quite a bit. So if you're talking about actual equity and ownership and the economics of equity, then you'll find no disagreement with me that it doesn't go near far enough. But who do you think is most affected by the possession laws that we have now? Well, it's overwhelmingly Black and brown people. That's a fact, and we're reducing penalties. The spin on this is like we are increasing penalty, we are increasing interactions, and there's a whole lot of hyperbole in these discussions. But the truth is we are reducing interactions, and we are reducing the sentences. No, let me finish. I have been really polite. I have been really polite through this whole thing. Please let me finish, my man. How can you deny that? How can you deny that?
Because it's decriminalized in Louis City.
Who are you trading? The interactions that we're going to have because somebody is smoking cannabis in a public square versus somebody who losing sins. Okay, enough. To going to thousands of convicts with their record expungement and the current people we have incarcerated for cannabis, you're gonna say that, okay, well, a stop and cite mandate, which isn't a thing, we're gonna trade that for this.
Yeah, I mean,
Just say stop and cite isn't a thing. I'm sorry. I know I was going to be quiet, but did you just say the stop and cite isn't a thing?
There is no stop and cite mandate. That is complete bullshit.
Okay. It's not. First of all, you can go back and watch the PBS special with Ashley Blandman Love, where John Payne admits on national television that there is a stop and cite clause to fine people for public use $100, and it goes on the records. I don't know who the hell keeps telling you guys. Dan Vietz likes to spread lies and fill people with.
I just read it for him.
I mean,
same Dan
right
Vietz that you were
there,
just saying, you know,
you
put that
act like we're making this shit up because we hate John Payne. No, we're telling you
you're making this stuff up because you don't understand how to read the law. That's clear.
I'm sorry. It says $100 fine for public use. That's
in general, all of everything, every argument that you have thrown against Amendment
is factual. 100%.
It is not.
100%.
It is not.
That's why we forced, and it was Christina. I have to credit her for this. You know,
you guys are going around telling people that there is no expungement program, that it is not funded, and that is completely bullshit. That is complete bullshit.
Real quick.
Hold on, pause for a second. I will everybody. For just to be clear though, the things that we're addressing about the expungement clause, about the micro licenses, about actually all of these points have actually been read directly from the amendment. So there's no.
You're misinterpreting it so much.
But you're not in a position. You're not qualified to make that claim.
Who amongst us is?
But two. More importantly,
really, Wiley, because you've been wrong half this podcast too.
Hang on. What was I just about to say?
What do you, man? Look, we've been working one-on-one with these lawmakers since February.
Right. If Ron Hicks' bills would have passed, if the Cannabis Freedom Act would have done this, if my mom had balls, she would have been my dad. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Every resistance has failed, and you can provide no reasonable path to what you are asking for. And what you are asking for is open licensing.
Where's the finality?
Because let's all admit it, the best social equity program is open licensing. That is what this entire fight is about.
Let me go back to something
happening right now in this bill. So if that's not going to be the best for Missouri.
You were just talking about the governor, who is the leader of our Missouri Republican Party, and his anti-cannabis stances, and you want me to believe that you're going to be able to push something through the legislature? You're not.
Amendment 3 wants us to believe that our legislature is going to fund this expungement program, and I just want to be very clear about something. We are not the ones who said anything about the expungement program not existing. That was research conducted by the NAACP. They are the ones who first posted about that and revealed that. That was not me or any of the other people in this room. That was a professional organization for minorities who came up with that.
So Nate,
hey guys, can I talk? Can I talk for just a second?
Nate, final thoughts. Then we're passing to Daniel.
Look, don't let the great be the enemy of the good. When you take away license, this is just my opinion. When you take away licensing, Amendment 3 is the most progressive adult use program to be implemented across the country. Throughout this whole thing, no one has been able to give me a state to compare otherwise. I want you to be realistic. I'm almost done. Ben Buddy. I want you to be realistic about your expectations. MCI failed. Fair Access Missouri failed. HB 2704 failed. How long are we really going to say no to the expungement and the release of literal tens of thousands? When you add expungements for prior convictions, it's literally tens of thousands people's lives that are going to change. You're going to give access to Missourians. Does licensing suck? Absolutely. Is it a bunch of greedy bastards at the end of it? Yes, we agree on all of that. But at the end of the day, there's no realistic alternative. There's no path forward. And here is a chance for us to have the best program in the state so far.
Okay.
That's
Daniel,
my final word.
Final thoughts?
I got to respond. Let me respond just a few things, and then I'll shut up. Daniel.
Yeah, hold on just a second. Daniel, I'm going to go to Daniel for final thoughts. We're getting close to the end of the show, and we'll come to you, Ben. Okay. And then we're going to give Wiley the last word.
Okay. And I appreciate everybody's voice tonight, and I respect everybody in the room and everybody's listening. I'll say it like this. There's different things that were happening in Missouri over the last year. Ron Hicks' bill was wonderful. So many good things could have came from it, but I cannot live in the skeleton of a House bill that doesn't exist anymore. Number two, I'd like to quote Representative Ashley Bland-Manlove, who said that no legislation gets by in less than 7 years. That's just real. You can see it with the federal government now. They've been talking about cannabis for the last 5 years. They're going to talk for the next 2. Maybe we'll get something out of it. But the fact is, politicians are not there to save us. Individual politicians, sometimes they've got the right idea. But as a whole, they've never been out to save the cannabis folks. They've never been out there for us. So myself, I don't see another path, and I'm sick of sitting where I'm at. I do believe that there's more to do and so much more to fight for, and that's exactly why I appreciate everybody in this room, because you're all activists that have become activists, and I appreciate everybody. But that's where I'm at. Yes, on 3.
Thank you. Ben?
Yeah, I just wanted to, just a few things.
Yes.
One, and Daniel, I second that. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you, Nate, and the different opinions. And I think we all have the same mentality that we want to see the end of prohibition at some point. Nate, I think you had asked a question, or you had posed this point about minority communities, and I'm speaking of this as not a minority, but as somebody who's close to the source and has been working with representatives in that area. And I can tell you that nobody in those communities is thrilled about Amendment 3. Nobody. There's a reason the Black Caucus supported Ron Hicks' bill.
Community.
There's a reason why the community leaders are coming out. There's a reason the NAACP has come out against it. There's a reason why Black people in general are going to vote no against Amendment 3. Okay? Nobody's excited about it in those communities. Unless
crazy that you've talked to every minority in all these communities.
All right,
Hey, I can mute your mics, or you can mute them yourselves. We're going to let Ben finish his statement, because this is his final thoughts.
Thank you. And I will say, follow up with that. If they are excited, it's because they're running campaign talking points like yourself, man. And that's all they are. I mean, I've heard all these arguments about access. Dude, if you're having trouble getting access to pot in Missouri at this point, you are seriously doing something wrong. You're living under a rock. There's so much pot in this state from every other state that's coming. I mean, Oklahoma, for God's sakes. If you're ever having trouble getting access to this whole argument about access, we're going to give more access. What does that even mean? You can get pot anywhere, any time of day throughout the state of Missouri. I think the whole argument is asinine. But I hope that you guys, I guess on the other side will reconsider your position in the end, because I think this is going to create some serious issues for the state. As far as what Daniel said, and then I'll end with this, you said something about there not being any real option or something along those lines other than Amendment 3. Well, I vehemently disagree with that. And I don't think that's a good reason to put something in our Constitution that we know we can't change, let alone the industry is not going to allow it. Again, the point, these are the facts. You guys can argue with it all you want. But again, we were there. We're in these closed door meetings with the lawmakers. The industry killed our chances at any prohibition, period. The medical marijuana industry killed our chances at any prohibition, period. Okay? They are not going to allow you to make changes to create a more equitable market after Amendment 3 passes. They're not going to do that. They're going to fight tooth and nail. When you hand them a $2 billion industry, they're going to do the same shit they've been doing, excuse my language. They'll send their lobbyists, who again who blackmail, or not blackmail, who will bully, threaten, promise campaign money. I mean, look what just happened with Mayor Lucas, who was an opponent for months and months. He was on our side for months and months and months. He's out and he's openly speaking out against Amendment 3 and the marijuana cartel. And then all of a sudden, the last minute, like Christina just said, we're at the finish line. He flips the script. Well, why did he do that? Maybe it has something to do with his run for Congress. Maybe the industry approached him and said, we're going to support your run for Congress. This is what they do. And you guys have to understand that by giving these people the money, they're also going to control the politics of the state. for an indefinite period of time. That's what they're doing. And so, from the very top down, again, Steve Tilley happens to be Governor Parsons' good buddy. Okay, the most powerful man in the state of Missouri. Who Republican lawmakers shudder when you bring his name up in the halls of the Capitol. Refuse to talk about Steve Tilley. Why? Because he'll kill their bills, or he'll kill their campaign. Or this is what we're dealing with. But that's who represents this Amendment 3. So, bigger picture, is we're up against those kind of people. So we don't want to hand them, this industry that's going to add fuel to what they're doing. And that would be my point for your consideration. And I'm done.
Thank you. And
Thank you, guys.
Who joined us live, Wiley Price joined us live. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We love live guests.
Yeah, thanks for
It's
being
our
here.
favorite.
It's not my first time in the line.
And so final thoughts on
I guess I kind of think backwards. As I said earlier, this whole idea of this is, better than what we got. Again, when you see a group of people starving in a situation and you go to them like, hey, I'm gonna help y'all out in this second round and I'm gonna make sure y'all don't starve. And in the second round, you hand them shit sandwiches. Like, I just rather continue to starve. This is an insult as far as criminal justice goes, because we already have decriminalization in the city of St. Louis as well as the city of Kansas City. And this is going backwards. So right now, as it stands, if a cop sees this blown on the corner, he's just going to drive by. He knows it's decriminalized. He knows that they're not prosecuting anything less than 100 grams, right? He knows this. If Amendment 3 passes, that encounter could go completely left at any given time. And the best case scenario is that the cop leaves me with a $100 fine. That's very, very relevant in my community. It's very, very relevant in poor communities where police patrol. You know what I mean? And so for me, saying that this is the best thing, this is better than what we got, I'll just stick with what we got. As it stands right now, the police are pretty much on a hands-off deal on this, unless it's a big deal. But with Amendment 3 passing, if they see 3 guys hanging out in the park, they can go run up on them like, guns a-blazing if they want, because they are.
Wiley, I want to point out that you're in a class 1 city that can make those kind of rules. I live in a class 3 city. We can't make those kind of rules that you made. $100 fine is a blessing down where I'm at.
Or no fine.
But that's,
Yeah,
I agree.
Felonies over
Where I'm
fines.
at, there's no fine. And what you're suggesting that we
No,
do,
it's felony, right? That's the alternative where you're at,
No, not
right?
in
If
St.
you're
Louis.
caught smoking weed,
no, not in St. Louis.
okay.
No, that's what I'm saying. St. Louis has the
The rest of
ability to
the-
make.
So that's what it should do. That's
St.
what the
Louis-
state should do.
I'm from the rest of the country. It's not like that here.
The state.
Yeah, I'm in a class 3 city. I'm in a class 3
Right.
city. You're in a class 1 city.
The point being is that those interactions won't happen under decriminalization here, right? So then to vote for Amendment 3 would create a situation where they would have probable cause, if you would, to come up on a situation where you're just hanging out with a couple of your buddies. And that's kind of problematic. But
That's valid in St. Louis. That's valid in St. Louis.
We are
That doesn't speak
at
to the rest of the
end
state.
of our time. I really appreciate, we both really appreciate, you guys all coming on. Thank you so much for being such strong advocates for your position and coming on and just, facing the fire. We really do appreciate it. We wish we had more time. We could go for hours and hours on this. We understand that. But unfortunately, we do have to wrap the show up. For those of you watching, this show today was sponsored by the Cola Lounge, who let us use this space to record. Also sponsored by Queen Kitty Seltzer, which is mine and MJ's low CBD, no sugar seltzer, and CQ LLC. And also, holler for St. Louis Cannabis Club. They got a peach mango in that low CBD, sugar-free seltzer, a peach mango made with organic terpenes. Come check them out. And they got lemon as well, right? They got lemon and peach mango. So yeah, definitely come check them out. Check out the new Cola Lounge. They're going to be open soon, I believe. Definitely, if you have a couple bucks and you want to throw it in, donate to the Cola Lounge. The Cash App is scrolling across the bottom. It's $ the Cola STL. We really appreciate you. We really appreciate everybody being in the comments today. You guys, this show blew up, and we really are so happy that you were here. We hope that the information that you gathered today was helpful for any of you that were undecided. And most importantly, please go vote. This conversation does not matter at all if you don't show up to the polls. So we know that this is midterm time, and it's not usually when people go out and vote, but honestly, these are the most important elections that you could vote in. So please go out and vote in your midterm elections. Please go out and vote either for or against this amendment, however you see fit for your life and for your community. And just make sure that your voice is counted and heard. So go out there and vote. Make sure that you guys do that. We are in St. Louis for the rest of the week, so definitely hit us up. You can find me, Canna Queen DGO, everywhere I go. So if you're on social media, just look me up, and I'm probably there. And we really thank you for being in person today. It was so nice to meet you, by the way. We've heard many good things about you. And thank you, audience, and thank you, panelists, for joining us today. We are not going to have a would you rather. We're not going to bring down this vibe with a weird would you rather question, but join us on Monday and we will bring you one. We will be back on the road on Saturday, so definitely hit us up if you want to hang out. St. Louis, we're here. Always, as always, be nice to yourself. Put your mask on before assisting others. You can't love others if you don't love yourself first. Love yourself.
Yeah, y'all. I did not get to say a lot at all because I was just taking in everything that everyone had to say. And as my final thoughts, I'd like to just remind everyone that your vote does matter, as many people have said here. Really understand what you're voting for. What I gathered from this and my takeaway is that everyone's kind of got their little pieces that they like about this, but also, and they're willing to stand on that hill and go for it. But then they're also saying, no, I don't really like that or agree with that over there, but I'm still going to vote for what I like, even if it doesn't serve everybody. And I think everyone should revisit that thought and take this as a whole that, okay, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. Well, y'all can wait a little bit longer because if we want everything to be done right federally, we should do it right statewide, right? We should be leading as an example each state, each of us representing our communities of what is best for everyone in this industry. We are still a baby industry. We can still make the things go the way that works for everybody, for mom and pops, for patients, for big cannabis. There's a place for everybody for this. And so that's, there's a piece for it for everyone, and we shouldn't be fighting each other on it. Okay. And so with that, cultivate love, bring it to you because we all do deserve it.
We deserve
all right.
it.
Yeah. And if you can't find that love, then you give us a shout and we'll help you out with that. We got peoples, to help spread that. So, and in the end, always stay lifted.
You guys, we'll see you on Monday. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Show. Love you. And